You've never given anything to this family." That was the last thing my son said before he hurled my suitcase down the stairs, half-zipped, still open clothes spilling like the years I'd folded into this house. It hit the hardwood with a heavy, final thud. No one rushed to stop him. Tasha stood at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, silent as a verdict. Her eyes didn't blink, just stared like she'd rehearsed this moment longer than I had ever imagined. I didn't say a word. Not when he shouted. Not when he pointed to the front door like I was some stranger who'd overstayed. Not even when my coat got caught under the stair railing and Dane yanked it loose like it owed him something. The silence was the only power I had left, and it was louder than anything he'd ever screamed. I bent to zip the suitcase. The zipper was broken, now teeth misaligned. I didn't fix it. I just tucked the corner under and stood. The house behind me, I helped buy it when Dane's business collapsed. Half the down payment came from my retirement fund. I signed on the remodel, paid for the new windows, covered the electric bill more months than I could count. But in this moment, none of that mattered. I was just an old woman with a broken suitcase and a front door that was no longer mine. I didn't ask where they wanted me to go. I didn't ask why it had come to this. I stepped outside. The air was colder than I expected. They didn't even close the door behind me. I walked down the driveway, slowly listening to the echo of my own steps, feeling every crack in the pavement I'd once helped seal. By the time I reached the sidewalk, I knew I'd never step back into that house again, not as someone welcome. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. Ray's number was still pinned at the top. I pressed call. Ray didn't ask questions when I showed up on her porch with nothing but a torn suitcase and quiet eyes. She just opened the door, pulled me inside, and made coffee the way I like it. Black, no sugar, strong enough to steady your breath. I slept that night in her guest room, the kind with old quilts and no judgment. I stared at the ceiling for hours, retracing the years that brought me here. It started with a phone call 5 years ago. Dane's voice had cracked just a little when he said the business wasn't going to make it through the quarter. He asked if I could co-sign the mortgage. I didn't hesitate. I withdrew half my retirement, $53,000. The down payment saved their dream. I told myself it was what any mother would do. Then came the upgrades. Tasha wanted quartz countertops, not laminate. Then recessed lighting. Then a full nursery remodel. I paid for all of it. Quietly. No plaque. No thank you card. I covered groceries when Dane's card declined. Picked up the electric bill when winter dragged longer than expected. They never asked again, but they never stopped taking. When my lease ended, they offered the guest room temporarily. It was painted pale green with no closet and smelled faintly of insulation. Still, I moved in, said thank you, washed my own dishes, never complained. But soon the invitation stopped. Dinner was just for the three of us tonight. Holidays became awkward. Dane stopped calling me Mom, started calling me her. Sometimes I'd walk through the hallway and see family photos on the wall. None of them included me, not even the ones I'd paid the photographer for. Still, I stayed. I told myself I was helping, that I was useful, that being nearby mattered. But usefulness, I've learned, expires faster than love. That morning after coffee, Ray pulled out a folder. "Core," she said softly, "you're going to need this back." Inside was a copy of the house deed with both our names still on it. I ran my finger over my signature. I hadn't seen it in years. It all started long before my suitcase was thrown down the stairs. I should have seen it coming sooner. It was a Tuesday. I remember because the clinic called later that day to confirm my blood work came back clean. My heart was stable. Just rest, stay warm, and avoid stress, the nurse had said gently. I almost laughed. When I got home, the hallway was unusually quiet. No cartoons playing in the living room, no smell of dinner, just the sound of boxes being taped shut. My bedroom door was open. Inside, my clothes had been folded and stacked into 2 large plastic bins. My shoes were in a laundry basket, and taped to one of the moving boxes was a white label printed in neat font garage. Mills stuff. I stood in the doorway for a long time, not moving, just trying to breathe. Tasha appeared behind me, all bright tone and forced warmth. "Hey, we didn't want to overwhelm you, so we went ahead and got started. Thought the garage might feel more private. It has that little window, and the space heater's already plugged in." I didn't speak. Then Dane came down the hallway. He didn't look surprised to see me, just annoyed that I hadn't gone out longer. "It's temporary, Mom. We just need the guest room for the baby, that's all." The baby. My first grandchild arriving in 3 months. Apparently, I had been given a choice: become an indoor storage bin or step aside quietly. I walked to the garage without a word. They'd cleared a corner, laid down a rug, shoved a twin mattress next to the tool bench. One small window, half fogged, let in the winter light. That night, I didn't unpack. I didn't make the bed. I just sat on the edge of the mattress and held my coat closed. In the morning, I tried the door to my old room. It was locked. They hadn't just moved me, they'd replaced me. I stood in the kitchen later that evening and poured myself a cup of coffee. No one asked if I wanted dinner. No one looked up. But I looked at the calendar on the fridge and circled a date in my mind. The message came while I was folding laundry in Ray's spare bedroom. "You need to see this." It was a link. Reddit. There, under a throwaway username and a story dripping in self-pity, was Tasha's version of the truth. "My husband's elderly mother refuses to leave our home. She's mentally unstable and manipulative. We've tried everything: therapy, boundaries, compassion. But she's making it impossible to raise our child in peace. We just want a healthy, quiet home. Is that so much to ask?" It had over 3,000 upvotes. Hundreds of comments poured in beneath it. "She sounds toxic. Call a lawyer. Set boundaries. It's your house, not hers." People like that only learn when you cut them off. Then came the worst part: links to fundraising platforms. If anyone's been through this, you know how expensive lawyers and nursery remodels are. We're doing our best, but anything helps. And people gave. Dozens of donations. Notes like, "You're so brave," and sending love from one daughter-in-law to another. I didn't speak. I just asked Ray to bring me the printer from her office. I printed every page, screenshots, comment threads, the post itself, donation links, timestamps. Then I opened the red accordion file I'd kept since the day Dane signed the mortgage. I added printouts beside receipts, down payment transfers, monthly utilities, grocery bills with my credit card listed at the bottom, repair invoices for the plumbing, the roof, the nursery. There were years of evidence buried under their version of the truth. Ray watched me work in silence, only interrupting once to refill my coffee. I took it black that night. No cream, no sugar, just bitter and hot. They'd rewritten the story for the world. Now I was writing it back, quietly, legally, page by page. And the more I assembled, the more I realized I didn't want them to apologize. I wanted them to face what they'd built, and what I was ready to dismantle. The black binder had been with me longer than the house, longer than Tasha. Nearly as long as Dane's adulthood. I kept it in a locked drawer under my bed at Ray's untouched until now. I opened it with steady hands. The first tab was utilities, gas, electric, water, monthly payments made from my account. The totals stretched back nearly 5 years. Every time Dane was between paychecks, I had filled the gap. Quietly, without asking for repayment. Next came repair invoices, the new roof, the foundation crack, the bathroom leak. Tasha insisted needed a full modern remodel. I'd signed off on each contractor, paid every deposit, Then the down payment transfer $53,000 from my IRA, labeled as family support in the banknote. I remembered how hopeful Dane sounded that day. "You're saving our future, Mom." I had believed him. But the most important document came at the end. A single-page agreement. Dane's signature. Mine. Witnessed and notarized. I, Dane Voss, acknowledge that this property is jointly owned between myself and my mother, Corlena Voss. In the event of dispute or dissolution of cohabitation, both parties shall have equal claim to the value of the home, unless legally amended. They'd never amended it. My name was still on the title. I stared at that page for a long moment. It wasn't anger. I felt it was clarity. They had built their lives on the assumption that I would always stay silent, that my giving was infinite, that motherhood meant forgetting my own rights. I picked up my phone and called Ray. She answered on the first ring. "It's time," I said. By the next morning, she'd set the appointment with her lawyer. I slipped the binder into my canvas tote bag, placed it gently beside my thermos, and zipped it shut. There was no need to explain to Dane or Tasha. They'd already decided who I was. Now, I would show them who I actually am. The office was quiet. Thick carpets, warm wood, the kind of place where everything is handled in quiet tones and firm signatures. Ray sat beside me, her hand resting on mine as I slid the binder across the table. Daniel, the lawyer, flipped through it with growing interest. "You kept everything," he murmured. "I was the accountant in the family," I said simply. "Before I became the wallet." By the end of the meeting, he had what he needed. Title dispute. Injunction. Demand for mediation. The paperwork moved fast. By the next morning, a courier had delivered a formal notice to Dane and Tasha. I didn't see their faces when they opened it, but I know exactly when they did, because 10 minutes later, Tasha posted a photo on her page, a picture of the nursery wall soft peach tones, white trim, a quote in script above the crib, "Welcome to your forever home." The caption read, "Almost ready for baby girl." A performance, a mask of normalcy. But behind that filter, I knew the fear had started to set in. That afternoon, Dane texted me. "Dane, why are you doing this to your family? Dane, this isn't like you. Please talk to me." I stared at the screen for a while, watching the typing bubble appear, disappear, reappear. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Every sentence they'd ignored, every birthday missed, every dinner. Skipped every photo cropped had said more than I ever could now. They only remembered I was family the moment my silence stopped working in their favor. I put the phone down and went back to sorting documents with Daniel. He was preparing a timeline for the court, aligning payments with signatures, transfers with renovations. It was all there, neatly tracked, unshakable. I used to believe love outweighed paper, but I've learned only one of them holds up in court. Daniel looked up from his laptop. "Next step is asset valuation," he said. I nodded. "Start with the house." The house was empty when I arrived. Their car was gone, appointments maybe shopping or more likely posting curated joy for strangers online. I still had the spare key Dane never thought to ask for back. I let myself in and stood for a moment in the entryway. It smelled like lavender detergent and warm dust. Familiar, but not mine anymore. I walked slowly down the hallway. The walls were lined with photos, vacations, birthdays, baby showers, smiling faces, posed arms, frames carefully arranged in matching colors. I paused at each one. There was Dane at his college graduation, Tasha cradling her baby bump in a sunflower field, the two of them holding sparklers on the 4th of July. But not one included me. Not even the Christmas I hosted, catered, and paid for. Not the family reunion I flew everyone in for. Not the first birthday I stayed up all night baking for while they slept in and arrived late. My absence was deliberate. like they hadn't forgotten me, but removed me. I opened the hallway drawer beneath the console table. Inside was a mess of batteries, pens, and tangled cords. And there, beneath a torn envelope, was a photo I recognized. 2 years ago, I was seated on the far right end next to the high chair. But in this print, my image had been sliced clean out. A jagged edge where my shoulder once was. They hadn't even reprinted it, just cut me out. I didn't cry. I placed the photo face down, closed the drawer, and turned back toward the door. On my way out, I passed the baby's room. It was painted soft pink now. The name Eden stenciled above the crib. A rocking chair sat by the window. The one I bought. Still there. Still rocking. I touched the back of it once just to feel the grain under my hand. Then I slipped out the same way I'd come in quietly, like a ghost leaving someone else's story. Back in the car, I called Daniel. "The house is staged," I said. "Let's move forward." The court's decision came through on a Wednesday morning. Daniel forwarded the ruling with a simple subject line. "We've won." I read the attached PDF twice, then a third time. The language was dry, but the meaning was clear. My claim stood. My name on the title was valid, my financial contributions documented and substantial. If no private agreement could be reached within 30 days, the property would be appraised and prepared for liquidation. The house would be sold. By that afternoon, my phone lit up. "Dane, please don't do this. This is our home." "Dane, we can work something out. Let's just talk." An hour later came Tasha's message, sharper, colder. "Tasha, if you force this, we'll sue for emotional damages. We'll go public if we have to. You'll ruin your own name." I didn't reply. Daniel did. He copied me on the email. "We are prepared to proceed with documentation in court." That was all. One sentence. Clean. Final. I sat at Ray's kitchen table, fingers wrapped around my mug. The coffee had gone cold, but I kept holding it. Not for warmth, but for weight. For something solid in a world that had treated me like fog. They wanted mercy, but only now that the outcome wasn't in their hands. I remembered the nursery, the rocking chair, the photo drawer, and suddenly I realized they hadn't just tried to erase me. They expected me to erase myself, to vanish for their comfort, to disappear quietly like some old draft in a house they no longer wanted to renovate. But I was still here, still named, still owed. The appraiser's office called the next morning to schedule a walkthrough. I gave them the dates, gave them the lockbox code, gave them access to the life I'd been pushed out of. That night I lit a candle by Ray's window, opened my ledger, and checked off one more box. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Polished wood, sharp suits, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. I sat between Daniel and Ray, spine straight, hands folded in my lap. Across the aisle, Dane couldn't meet my eyes. Tasha clutched a stack of papers. The judge reviewed the file silently for several minutes. Then she looked at me. "Mrs. Voss, do you have anything you'd like to say?" I stood. Slowly. Carefully. Not out of fragility, but out of purpose. I didn't look at the judge when I spoke. I looked at Dane. "You said I gave nothing to this family," I said quietly. "So I gave you what you asked for my silence." Tasha's breath hitched. Her lip trembled, but she didn't speak. I sat back down. That was all I needed to say. The ruling came swiftly. The judge acknowledged the documentation, the deed, the financial record of support. She cited long-term contribution, shared equity, and breach of verbal agreement. The home was to be sold, and the proceeds divided. No appeals. No delays. Tasha broke first, sobbing into her hands, shoulders shaking. Dane stayed still, staring at the floor like it could undo the judgment if he refused to look up. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I only breathed. Daniel leaned in. "You did it," he whispered. "But I wasn't thinking about winning." I was thinking about the first time Dane called me Mom, about late nights rocking him through fevers, about how easily a child's gratitude can turn to entitlement when love comes without limits. The house wasn't just property. It was years. It was effort. It was history. And now it was gone. I stood as the gavel fell, walked out without glancing back. The air outside tasted like fall crisp, real undecorated. Ray walked beside me in silence. Later that night, as I packed away the last of the receipts and folded the court documents into the binder, my phone buzzed. A new message. From Dane. Dane, you've made your point. Are you happy now? I turned off the screen. The mornings are quiet now. I sit on my little patio with a mug of hot coffee, no cream, no sugar, just the way I've always taken it when no one was watching. The sun comes in slow over the garden fence, and the birdsong replaces what used to be voicemail notifications. The house is small. Just one story, no stairs to worry about, no shared walls. I picked it out myself with Emma's help. She walked every open house with me, never once asking why I wanted something new. She just listened. We painted the kitchen a warm, soft yellow. She hung the wind chimes by the front door without asking the kind that catch even the gentlest breeze. I let her choose the dining chairs. For the first time in decades, every item in this house was chosen by someone who respected my voice. There are no baby gates, no echoing silence behind closed doors, no guest rooms that become garages. Only space, only breath, only mine. When the email came from Dane, I didn't open it right away. I saw the subject line before I clicked. You broke the family. I stared at those words. Short, blunt, familiar. They always rewrite the ending when it no longer favors them. I clicked, read it once, and deleted it. No reply. No explanation. No need. The court papers were finalized. The house sold to a couple expecting their first child. Young, hopeful. I left a note behind for them in the pantry drawer. Build it with kindness. It'll last longer. Emma drops by sometimes with groceries. Ray visits on Sundays. We sit, sip coffee talk about nothing and everything. One morning, I walked to the mailbox barefoot, the gravel cool beneath my feet. No one watching from a window. No one locking a door behind me. And for the first time in a long time, I realize I am not waiting for anyone to remember me. I remember myself, and I keep the coffee warm.